Friends and music makers, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to be breaking down the exact steps of how to arrange your track, turning raw musical ideas into a professional polished track. That's the goal. We'll be building on last Sunday's stream, so if you missed it, no worries. I'll quickly bring you up to speed before we dive deep. Join me as we work through these essential steps to go from a loop to a finished track. As always, feel free to drop your questions in the chat and we'll learn and discover new things together. My goal is to help you level up your music production skills and unlock your creative potential. So without further ado, let's dive in. All right, so hopefully already microphone is good. We're just going to have a quick test of a little bit of music here just to make sure we're in business there. So all the meters are reading nice with some audio, so we're looking good. So essentially, let's start with a couple of things here. Before sort of starting today's stream, I did run a little bit of a poll in the YouTube community section of my page, and I'm just going to show you an image here. So it's going to pop up on the screen now in theory. And that's the result of that little community poll. So thank you to those of you who voted in that poll. And of course, if you're joining me in today's live stream and you read the question in the chat and you wish to answer that, or you look at the poll and want to add something, by all means, please do drop it in the chat. So what do we learn from that? So those of you who voted put the answer that repetition versus change was the most difficult thing you find about, or the most challenging thing you find about arranging a track. And that's fair enough. I would say absolutely that wasn't such a surprise when we look at what I was putting there as the four options. So repetition versus change won the vote there. Let's just slip over to another slide. And this one's just a simple one where you can take a look at an example of a graph of time and a graph potentially that could be a reflection of a song structure or an arrangement. That's about the most formula I'm going to offer today before sort of working through the track in real time. That sort of image there, I think, is a good reflection of, you know, a lot of songs, and particularly a basic arrangement or structure could well be just exactly that, a timeline that is essentially like climbing a mountain and then sort of going back, so going up the mountain and then going down the mountain. So there's not too much overload of information there. It's a little bit of a timeline. We have the beginning, the middle, and the end, and we have this sort of rising timeline up to a crisis climax and resolution. So I just want you to sort of picture that image in mind. And then, as I said, we're going to dive in to today's track. I've also made a few notes, so continuing just on that topic of repetition versus change. So we're going to jump back to our screen share. We'll just do that. So let's talk about that for a second, repetition versus change. And let's talk about, again, what is arranging, what is song structure, what is the concept behind it. You know, as humans, our brains, the way we work, and particularly with music, we actually latch onto repetition very quickly. It's part of the way our mind works, and when we relate it to music, we're actually, when we're listening to music, we're kind of listening for patterns and repetition. And if we're able to lock onto those and identify those, which we often do quite quickly, and they don't change, then we tend to get rather bored, as we've heard it already before, and tend to sort of go potentially away from listening to that track. Concentration, focus disappears. So the more variation you have in your program and production, the less the brains of, let's say, your listeners will start to think, I've heard this already. So a good place to start with repetition and change is to keep providing change, whether it's subtle or dramatic, that's up to you, but that will keep your tracks staying nice and fresh and engaging for your listeners. One caveat to that is chaos isn't good either. So, the difficult thing, I guess, with this, the push pull, is actually understanding that repetition is good, um, and chaos is not good, and somewhere between too much repetition and absolute chaos is kind of where we want to live, right? So we don't want too much repetition and we don't want chaos. We kind of want in the middle there. We want to be pushing sort of like into a rubber band or something like that, and imagining that we're pushing into that, and yeah, we're getting that sort of tension from our structural arrangement of our song. So if you're watching this live stream today and you're a DJ or a performer, perhaps let me know in the chat if you are either of those. My track idea, since it began in stream 1, this is actually stream 3, by the way. It's going to be a continuation till this track is finished. This is part 3 in the series. If you're a DJ, you're probably already quite, or performer, as I said, and you're playing in front of crowds of people and the public, you're probably already quite used to storytelling and reacting to what is going on with the audience in front of you, with your own music or potentially with other music from others if you're DJing. So when I started out this music idea, I kind of mentioned in the beginning that it was likely to be a track that I would play in my own DJ set in a club. So as a DJ, when I'm often working with DJs, artists and performers, I think you've got already quite a strong angle that people often overlook when it comes to arranging your songs. Because as I said, if you're doing DJing or performing, you should be quite used to sort of getting that feeling for when something has played too long and it needs to change and react to that. That's part of being a really good DJ and a really good performer. So similarly with our own songs, if we can apply that feeling and thought to our own storytelling of our own tracks, that's going to be super, super helpful. So if you're a DJ or performer, you can lean on that, and you should have that kind of instinct already, whether a part is too long and if people might be starting to get bored by it. So I think arranging could come quite naturally, and that's a skill set that DJs and performers have that often is overlooked. So finally, what is arranging? Well, for me, it's kind of storytelling. It's a narrative arc, like the image we just saw at the beginning of today's video. Is there a magic formula? Do we want to apply formulas? I'd kind of argue that not really. And today I'm not going to be giving you any sort of magic, if you count this number of bars and use this number of minutes and seconds, hey ho, presto, you've got an amazing song arrangement. I think really you actually want to kind of, if you can, break free from that a little bit and try and avoid formulaic and more this push pull where you feel when something doesn't kind of keep you engaged anymore, and potentially the person that's listening or dancing, uh, engaging in your track. So could we use reference tracks from other artists and producers to make our arrangements work and learn from those? Absolutely. If you like, you can go and listen to lots and lots of music and bookmark and put in folders favorite tracks from your favorite artists and kind of check out how they arrange and structure their songs. And certainly you can lean on that when you're getting started. If you have no clue of where to begin whatsoever, that could be a good place to start, is picking apart and deconstructing what others are doing, and sort of maybe even emulating that a little bit before sort of going about it, finding your own pathway. But caveat to that, as always, there are ones. Be careful that you don't, using a reference track, you can use a reference track incorrectly, which could lead you astray, especially in terms of comparison and saying, well, my work just isn't as good as that, and therefore I give up and throw the track away and I don't continue. So finish your track at all costs. If you use a reference track, just lean on it just for getting a bit of a rough skeleton of what that person's done. I'm not going to be doing that again here today. I'm just going to be going by feeling. So what are the goals with our storytelling? It's to be engaging, it's to be clear, impactful, satisfying, and to give direction to our musical idea and the parts. Tension and release are a part of that. Creating contrast are a part of that. So we're going to sort of dive into that as we go today. So if you've got any questions about that, if you're listening to this and you think, what do you mean by that? As I said, drop it in the chat and I'll break that down. So I'll get rid of my notes out the way. Here we are in the arrangement view of Ableton Live. How did we get here? Well, we got here from the session view, and we built originally this peak loop in stream 1 of this series of videos, and that sounds like this. And then we went about in the session view here creating some alternative scenes to that. So we started by writing the drop or the peak loop and knowing that we've got the max energy of the track, and then we wrote a couple of different scenes where we essentially could go from that peak loop somewhere else in terms of energy. So we've got this scene called break. And then we've got this scene called the bridge. And they differ from that peak loop. So we're giving ourselves in the bank some options as movements and ways to sort of put this story together of this musical idea that I started a couple of weeks ago. So what I did there with Ableton Live, there are many ways. There are probably 4 or 5 different ways we could potentially now go from the session view to the arrangement and start doing the structuring and arranging of our song. I've chosen one method here, which I think a lot of people use. So perhaps it's good to see that, which is where I've just literally copied and pasted those scenes over here into the arrangement, and I put them in various sections on the timeline. And at the end of last week's part 2 stream, I kind of, moved them around on the timeline a bit, put a marker alongside them, gave them a label, and that's about it. So that's kind of where we're up to. How else could we get our song over from here? Well, we could actually arrange it almost fully in here, so we could have a lot more scenes than 4. We could have as many scenes as we need to transition through all the different sections of the song. We could click record and record that across into the arrangement view. We could also do a hybrid. We could, some copying, some recording. We could also add in a MIDI controller, which I've done on this channel in a previous stream before, where I live performed the session view into the arrangement. That can be really nice again from a DJ perspective, because you're feeling when you're changing over scenes and parts of the song, you're doing it purely by feeling an instinct rather than again following a formula or numbers or this X amount of bars I'm going to make a change. Okay, so lots of ways to do it. We're working this way. Our job now is to kind of connect these sections together a bit and see what works, what doesn't work, and go from there. So as I said, feel free as I go along. I'm going to start rolling up the sleeves and get working. To pop any questions you may have in the chat, and also say hello if you are tuned in and watching the stream. Let us know how you're doing. So as I said, no rules. We're going to try and sort of feel out how this works, making it, come together nicely. I'm not using a template. I'm not going to pay too much attention to, I'm not going to tell you like this number of bars, this should happen, etc., etc. We're going to kind of feel that out ourselves. But let's say again, if we are looking for clues in electronic music, techno, house, all the genres in and around, they are generally made up of sections of 8 bars, multiples of 8, let's say. So maybe I will keep that in mind as part of the backing of the idea. So I'm going to start working left to right. So I'm actually going to go from the intro of the song, so we can put a marker there. And this is, again, my own preference of the way to do it. You may have something that you do different to that, but I kind of like to now, if I'm using the method I'm using here, I'm going to work my way to connect everything together, building up to the peak. and then all the way out to an outro somewhere potentially over here. So let's pop a marker there as well, just as a rough guide. It's nothing more than that. So we're going to have an outro all the way over there. Right, so our goal here is kind of connect those parts. Now, some people do kind of the writing between these areas if they feel that's more critical, or perhaps they do the peak to the main break, you know, and they work on that instead of left to right. That's really, as I said, entirely up to you and how you feel it might come together the best. Question for you. Again, if you're in the chat today, I did ask what part of arranging music you find the most challenging. Please let me know, but also have a question. Do we need breaks in our track? Again, you can kind of ignore the labels up here that say breaks, but I have written main break and break. That's only because that is a reflection of the scene that I created over here. But again, where they're located, no idea if that's going to be the case, that it will stay there. And do we need them? What is their role if we have breaks in the track? Do we actually have to have any at all? That's a question if you wish to answer it. All right, so I know there's some percussion here, this track here, this MIDI clip. So I'm going to bring that over into the intro, and maybe I'm going to start with that. So what could be nice already with this is to come up with a variation. So we're talking also about repetition versus change being something that people struggle with a little bit. There is actually a clip 2 here. So this is a variation of that. Clip 1 is the sort of peak energy drum loop. 2 is a variation of it in the break. So maybe what I'll do is I won't use 1 in the intro, I'll use 2. But I also know that actually when I created this original percussion loop, that it's actually a loop that there is a lot more different sections of it that I could also draw from. So it's not a problem here to create more than loop 1 and loop 2, let's say. We can go in here and find other sections. And I'm also thinking, actually, even if I use 2 or 1, to kind of make it a little bit of a variation. So let's loop it up quite small down to its main loop section. And let's have a look at what we've got. We're working in here. So maybe we'll crop this one. So it's committed to that length. Let's change it and we'll make it 3. And we'll give it another color so it's kind of clear to us that it's something else. And then with it, I'm just thinking to see if we could use a little bit less of what we got here. So we might just have a few hits instead of all of it, and write our own little variation of it here type of thing. So maybe just something like that for now. So straight away, we've got sort of something a little bit different to our 2 and our 3, 2 and our 1, shall we say. What else have we got? We've got a closed hi-hat. We might like to use that already. Open hi-hat, we're not bringing in till later as it's a big energy part. So let's bring our closed hi-hat loop over to here. Let's make sure they're also having a nice conversation. The other thing I'd quite like to do maybe with this percussion here is add an effect to it. We could try automating the delay on return B using send and return technique. So we could have a little listen to that, not on the closed hi-hat track, Heath, on the percussion. So let's drag the bottom of that down. So we could use this B send over here to the B delay return that's already here in Ableton Live by default. And we could automate that to come on here or there. So we could try that first. Let's try that as a first thing. So let's show automation. Because I've clicked it, it's already here. And let's turn on the pencil tool. Let's maybe just see what happens if we add a little bit of delay in here. And you know, the fun thing with that is actually you could get even more minimal with the loop. What do I mean by that? So if I just kind of duplicate that across, and in the second one, I make another change. I'm just going to go back in here, take some of these sounds out a bit. So you might just have something literally like that. Or maybe just put that last one back and we'll move the delay over a bit. So I quite like that. So just the, you know, simplified version. So what we might do is we take this one and we actually move it over, and we might bring that in a little bit later as another step to what I've just kind of created. So this one is where we kick off, and we're going to duplicate that over and just using a few hits. So straight away, what are we doing here? We're not giving away one, we're not giving away two there to follow. So this is kind of stripping that down. We're using delay to kind of work with those little minimal hits. So now we've only got a few hits that we're playing. And then we've got this other edit that I just made a moment ago, which is a little bit different with the delays, and it's got more hits in it, right? So again, we could, if we wish, just to keep it clear, again, kind of turn that into a 4. Now, these are things I'm doing reacting to now the structure and arrangement. I could have maybe thought about these over in stream 1 or stream 2. But for me, this kind of starts to make sense when I start to take kind of the seed and what I've got and kind of work with it and, you know, use things like effects and kind of get things moving around and changing a bit. All right, so back to the intro. Similarly with the closed hi-hat, we've got these nice fills and grooves, so we could maybe make a variation of that as well. So let's just, again, color it up a bit different. And all of these can be used not only in the intro, then whenever we make these, they could come back again at another point in time. So let's try the offbeat hi-hat muted for a second. Yeah, I think the other way around. So let's say we have the offbeat. And we can maybe, if we just undo that, just have one of these perhaps. Something like that, just for a little subtle change. Okay, so we've got that going on. Let's kind of stretch that out. And we'll just turn this maybe into a loop. So we can loop that up and drag it out. So we would need to copy our automation over. Let's put that down in its own lane down here. And now I'm sort of thinking like we could do something here as a little transition type element. We could also have a small change in this area that we don't have in the very first section, but I'm not getting too bored with it, right? So far, it's kind of living okay. Let's maybe try a little bit of something from the kick part here. Just thinking like a little fill maybe. Yeah, I didn't mind that. Okay, let's have a clap. And let's maybe with the clap find the audio sample in this case. So I'm just going to hit the hot swap. So it's going to come up in my browser hopefully in a moment. Adrian Dantas, hey, how are you doing, my friend? Good afternoon. All right, so let's make a new track for this one. Just bring that back into the browser. There it is down there. And let's just pop that onto that audio track there. So we've now got it in audio as well as in the MIDI clip. And here, I'm just thinking to do a little trick. It's not a trick, it's something I use a lot. As if you've watched some of my streams, you'll see me do this quite a bit. I like little reverse sounds sometimes. So by having it in audio, it's nice and easy to kind of get this little clap here and just flip it. I'm going to use it as a little bit of a reverse clap instead of, hang on, we don't want that. Let's just drag it around a bit, get it in the right place. So we're just going to use this as a little transition type effect. Let's try it placed there and see what that sounds like. So it was to kind of have a conversation with this little kick fill that I've made here. So I think I'll copy that over here, and the little reverse clap. I quite like the volume of it actually. It's quite loud, but I kind of quite like that. So we're just kind of building some tension here with our intro. Let's call this track, so it's kind of labeled up for housekeeping. It's the reverse clap. And because I've chosen the same one, you don't have to do that, but there is going to be some kind of glue. That is, you know, when we do eventually have our forward normal 2-on-4 drum clap in the drum groove, they're going to be family, as they are essentially cut from the same cloth, as we say. So we could even copy the EQ over and have that on that same clap as technically. Okay, so let's see, what are we going to keep from that working forward? So I think the closed hi-hat we can drag right across. Let's remind ourselves, or let me remind myself, the change. There was a little bit of just this one, I think, final hi-hat that I removed. So maybe somewhere around here we have a little change of that, bring that in. And with the percussion part that I've changed as well, maybe we just kick in with the 4 straight away here. And again, just going to consolidate that or loop it so I can drag that out all the way across to there. And I do want to copy, I believe, my delay, but we'll check that in a moment. Let's undo that, try that. Okay. Okay, so I kind of prefer the rhythm actually of the first one that I did. So that's not the 4, it's this number 3 over here that I just created a moment ago. So I'm actually going to, I don't know if I'll use number 4 now, but let's just move that out the way. And let's then bring 3 all the way across. And let's actually try 2, the hi-hat change a little bit earlier. And it just has this little single extra note over here as the groove, change in groove. Oh, I need to copy this over as well. Let's have another reverse clap, but we'll put it somewhere else for a little bit of variety, so it's not just following the same old, same old. Okay, so I've got an idea. I won't bring the clap in there, but what I might actually do is bring the kick in, perhaps in this section here. I'm going to try this as we join our way over to here. I'm just going to split it, and what I'm going to do on here, let's just try having a nice kind of low cut filter on here to have it come in early, but have it filtered away. We'll just for now roughly set that somewhere around here. We're going to adjust that in a moment, and let's automate the on off of that, because we want to take control of that. So we're going to switch that on right there. We're going to switch it off here potentially, and when it comes in, it's now going to have the pulse of the kick, but it's going to be cut, and I'm going to cut it quite high at a moment. It's going to listen to that. And what I'm also going to do is I'm going to modify it so we don't have the, let's say, ghost kicks or these little extra kick notes. So we're just going to have a nice straight pattern, and we might or may not use this in the end here. If we do, perhaps what we'll do is just strip it down to that little one lower note beforehand. Yeah, it doesn't really work there, so we'll just leave that out for now. Doesn't work as a good segue into the filtered part. If we bring the filter before, well, that's the other option. So if we try the filter coming, including that, it may work. So just thinking on my feet a bit here. That's better. That makes more sense now if it's doing that. Just going to add a bit of reverb to this as well, this reverse clap. So let's have a listen to that. Maybe we automate. So that could be interesting, but I'm thinking to actually change that a bit. So if I automate the return to the reverb we're currently working with in the Ableton project, just the default stuff, there's something I can't do that I'm thinking to do here. So I'll explain what I'm thinking. So let's put a reverb directly inserted on this clap. Let's bring it down a bit on the dry wet. Okay, so that's kind of working for me there. And now I'm going to try panning the tail of the reverb. So we're going to get a bit of left and right movement there. Make it like a very slow left to right sweep on the end of that reverb tail. So let's see how long that kind of works with the rest of the groove and the rhythm. Let's have a listen. So we get a nice little bit of kind of movement going on in the track, which is good. Adrian, every time I watch Heath's video, I can't help but feel that music production is one of the coolest things ever. Well, I'm super happy to hear that. I'm glad it's inspiring you. You know, this, when you're arranging like this, I spoke a little bit before starting to work here. You know, if you can kind of channel your feeling into this, I enjoy things like this. I also enjoy mixing. Maybe I'm a bit of a freak, probably am, but you know, you do have to try and get in and immerse yourself into it and enjoy it, and you know, finish tracks and arrange them. So all of the steps. I enjoy pretty much all of it. I've had my times though, like everybody, where, you know, it's not easy and things don't go to plan. But yeah, you bounce back from those moments, you learn, and onwards and upwards. So let's also do that while we're kind of starting to add these little things like the panning and the reverb. Let's also have in this closed hi-hats here. Let's have a bit of a filter action on that as well. So let's open it up a bit as it goes. So rather than it just doing what it's doing now, let's get a filter on it. Let's get the power of the turning the filter on and off in an automation lane, so we can control that. We'll leave it on for now, but we're going to switch it off at some point. And let's take the high cuts and grab that. And let's open it up somewhere. I don't know where the part it's going to open right up, but let's cut it so that it's opening up, so we can get a bit of tension out of that. So we need to hear it, but just hear it. There we go. So let's try that from the start and come up a bit till we get. So it's just coming in nice. And maybe on these first kicks, there's a few ways we could do this, but we can just perhaps come into this first little kick fill that I made, grab the two notes, and what we might do here is just bring them both down together in velocity, which is kind of just going to quieten those first two down a bit, essentially. Maybe a little bit back up. There we go. Okay, so I'm kind of satisfied with that as an intro for now. I do want to I feel like we're ready to drop at this point into the kick right here. I think that's a good point to transition from this high cut kick. So filter coming off there is going to work. As far as all this other stuff coming in, probably not. So when I originally copied this section over here from the session view, put the marker, all of that, it's just rough. Doesn't mean any of this has to happen here. So we're going to zero out all of those things. So we're going to decide 100% ourselves what we're going to use here and what we're not going to use. So don't believe the vocal will be coming in there at all. Chords, not yet. The main sequence, maybe not yet. The bendy FX, maybe. That could be there. And also the Atmos could be interesting coming in here. So I'm going to strip it right down, and then we're going to decide what else comes in with the kick here, what continues, if anything, from the start, what doesn't, what comes out, if anything comes out. That's the kind of idea here. Let's copy the reverse clap over as a transition again here. And let's try stretching this one. So we're going to just grab the edge of it. Let me just check. We need to make sure it's warped and looping's on, so we can do that. And then I'm just going to grab the left edge of it with that shape there, hold shift on my keyboard. I'm going to pull it out so we get a bit of a longer kind of sweep. Maybe not as far as that, maybe just a bit of a stretch. Could be interesting with that little bit of kind of sound like that. And we could also, given it that it's in audio, we can also just shape it a bit as well. So Let's take out these hi-hats here. And the kick. So we're creating a little drop here, ready to drop into the next section. Okay. The little vocal atmosphere part could well work there. I'd quite like to try the clap out here. Perhaps we'll go in with the clap at this point. Nice, I think that kind of works. Let me come back a little bit and just see. So that atmospheric sound is interesting. Could get very tiring very quickly if it just carries on like that. But let's again maybe control it a bit like I'm doing with the hi-hat. We can bring it in with a filter. And so I always automate my on-off buttons so that I can make sure that, you know, I can bring it in and out whenever I wish to, and it's not going to be just on by default. That can be a mistake if you do that, by the way. I run into people who do that quite often, where they leave a filter just switched on and it's changing their kick or certain whatever they've got it applied to, and they're not really realizing that, and they don't have control over that, right? Because they're not automating the on-off. So similarly to the hi-hat, we're just going to adjust. We could also try a low cut instead of a high cut. I mean, most of the sound is low cut, so I think it has to be a high cut or a bandpass type filter. And we're just going to, again, just bring that quite closed when it first comes in. We're also going to check our hi-hat. It's still opening here, but I quite like it. So I actually think that I'll leave the hi-hat more filtered for longer. So I'm keeping the filter on that. And let's also maybe try on this little section of this vocal, we might do similarly to what we had going on with the percussion. And if you noticed, I didn't actually drag that out and bring that back in. We've sort of already done our first kind of removal of something that we're familiar with from the start. Could be tempting to keep that going, but for now I've kind of like swapped it almost in a way. I've kind of said, okay, we're having a rest from that. It did the job of lifting in the intro. We brought in the clap. That's kind of changed our focus a bit. We've brought the kick in, and we've brought in this vocal little atmosphere piece. So we're actually, you know, got quite a bit going on that's taken our focus from where we were to some new elements, right? So we're not getting caught out with like bored already with just repeating the same thing over. We might also throw a reverse clap in for good measure in here. We might have it again sort of at the end of a phrase in there somewhere perhaps. And what I was thinking is with the Atmos, we might do similarly to the percussion and just have a little automate of the delay somewhere here or there. Try that out, see what that sounds like. So maybe we'll have it just as a tester somewhere here. So I think that's quite nice. So keeping that theme of that little working with the send and returns and just using that automation of a bit of the B delay sending to the B return, send and return. We're just getting some little subtle changes here in these phrases, which I think is working quite nice. It worked well with the percussion at the start, and now it's giving this little vocal part some new life to it, and a little bit of a change here or there. Okay, so maybe a new transition type sound could be interesting. Just at the end of this section. Just going to put that back to where it was. That was an accident. So let's get this open here. Let's maybe have a little open hi-hat action, potentially. Just going to split out that part there. Bring that over. Wrong section, just come back a bit. Need to go a lot further ahead. Way over to there. All right, that makes sense. Let's open this filter up slowly. And maybe what we can do here, and by the way, if you are here with me in the live stream today, I'm arranging, this is part 3 of a series of videos. There's most likely going to be a 4 and a 5. Let's see how far we get today with the arrangement. It's all in real time, so you can kind of see the decisions I'm making, the techniques I'm using, and I'm trying to here take the idea that I started in part 1 and sort of bring it together into a story, and I'm reacting to things as I go here, automation, adding effects, making new little variations, and we're trying to get that balance between change and repetition, which people flagged as something they find difficult when it comes to arranging tracks, and it is, but we're trying to use feeling here rather than any magic formula or template. We're just trying to feel out when it makes sense to bring something in or take it away, and taking it away is as powerful as bringing it in, which I often put my foot down and try to emphasize to people, because I see a lot of people adding, but think about subtracting and taking away. If you give yourself a rest from something like we did already with that percussion sound, then we can always bring that back in and it will be refreshing again when it comes back in, and that's really another ace card up our sleeve. Just a mouthful of tea, which is now beautifully cold. All right, let's crack on here. So I feel like the bass could maybe come in here. And maybe we could even stretch it right across here, but I think I'll save that. But again, I'm going to look to actually use the instrument potentially to filter it or make a bit of a change, so I can kind of like, you know, dull it down a little bit when it comes in here, so that again it's got some progression to it. So let me try opening up the cutoff. So I'm just trying out a few ideas here. Let's get back over to here. Yeah, that could be potentially interesting what I'm doing there. So I'm kind of switching off oscillator 1 and I'm bringing oscillator 2 up an octave. So let me think about this. If I basically switch off oscillator 1 here, so we could do that with automation. So we could say oscillator 1, you're going to switch off in this section here, so we don't have as bright a synth, because the filter's already rolled off low, so that's why I'm not using the filter cutoff here. I'm going to take out that oscillator for a moment. It's going to come in at some point, and I'm going to then actually, if I take all of the MIDI and I put it up an octave, so let's do that, select and up an octave, should be able to recreate more or less what I was just trying. Quite, it's more brighter actually, so that was not what I was aiming for, so didn't quite read that right. So I was going from -1 to 0. Maybe I'll just automate that as well. So let's put the notes back down and I'll just automate this to be an octave up. So let's try that. Ah, okay. Now I see what I did wrong. Okay, funny stuff. So I had the oscillator on, not off. I'm not sure if somebody else saw that in the chat there, but now it should work actually, so I can get rid of one of these automation steps, I believe, if I was paying attention correctly. So I'm now going to put that MIDI back up an octave. I've turned the oscillator 1 off. Now I should be about right. Yeah. So we've just got this very muted low bass. If you're not wearing headphones or something where you can monitor that, you probably might struggle to hear that, but I've just turned it into a very low kind of muted bass for the start where it comes in for the very first time. Just checking in with the chat there. Adrian Dent is about figuring out when to add or subtract musical elements. To me, it feels like sculpting with the initial loop as the seed, guiding the arrangement while balancing. Yeah, exactly. I mean, you know, it's the more you do of this, the more that feeling develops. But essentially what we're trying to do here for me is push and pull a bit and feel where naturally we feel like, okay, that's too much of what just happened, we need to kind of make a change. And we're looking for, as I spoke about earlier in the video, we don't want chaos because then it's too hard to lock into something and follow it, and we don't want too repetitive because that is going to be boring. We want to find the sweet spot in the middle. I kind of think about it like teasing something. You're kind of testing how far you take it, and the person's going, okay, if they don't change it now, I'm out of here, and then you change it, right? It's that kind of push-pull feeling that you're working on, I think. All right, so let's actually take ourselves all the way back to the start and work our way along from where we're going. I reckon in this second section where the bass comes in, we're going to go up with the closed hi-hat a bit. We're going to open it out a bit more. And so let's emphasize a bit this phrase change here. Let's try taking out a bunch of kicks, see what that sounds like. And we're going to work on a little bit of a emphasized transition here, where we're going to make it quite clear that we're going to do something new on the other side of this. Okay, so the bass is going to continue on for sure. What happens if we do take the vocal out there and give it a break? Well, we're now looking to bring something kind of new into the equation here. We could bring that second part of the bass back in here. So by that I mean we could actually bring in that other oscillator. So let's try that at this transition here. Another little idea here. So these are all the sort of things that I'm kind of thinking on my feet here as I go. No pre-planning. I'm just reacting and thinking about ideas. What I could do with this, I could stretch the vocal across. There's still more filter to open up if I wish. But what I'm thinking here is to minimize it a bit for a moment. So not just drag it across. And I'll show you what I'm thinking to do. So let's try something out here. Let's try and make another little piece of this where we actually just have this little section here. So what we might do is copy this over. I'll do it slightly differently. I just want to take kind of that and let's bring that over into here like so. And I want to take out these breakpoints here. So the filter kind of, it opened up, but it's going to stay consistent there. Let's try this. Oops, I lost my, okay, just need to go backwards on that. Just go back a bit. Okay, let's try this again. I'll just fix the breakpoints up once I've done it. Down here. So I don't really need these guys. The rest of it, yes, hang on. I don't want that. Just zoom in here. Take a look. Okay. Being able to sense how far an idea can be extended before it becomes boring feels like a solid guiding principle for producers. It helps maintain interest while ensuring it doesn't get chaotic. Yeah, that's exactly the thing. It's kind of like, you know, this is why we must, you know, work on finishing our songs and sort of develop this skill. And we're not following a template here, right? I sort of made the caveat that if we can arrange our songs by sort of feeling, keeping in mind, I mean, you know, if I go back to my notes for a second, you know, the things we're trying to do here, the objectives a little bit is keep it engaging, keep it clear what I'm trying, where I'm trying to take you and guide you as the listener or the dancer. Make it impactful. That's certainly going to come. We're just building up to from the intro towards our peak. keep it satisfying and have a direction of where you're going. They're the things that we're trying to do here. Because when I think of the word arrangement, I think of formulas, and we could have a formula of this many minutes we change this, and this 8 bars and 16 bars and 32. We're just kind of going with the flow a bit here, trying to feel it out and reacting to what we think we need, what we don't need, take it in and out. And I'm still keeping in mind the parts I have available to me, which we're building up to. So the more I kind of gradually get to those parts, the more options I have in the bank. Whereas if I give everything away now, I'll have nothing to refresh the listener with further into the track, right? So I hope that makes sense. Let's carry on here. Yeah, that might be nice where I can actually control that a bit more myself. So we might change this over from the delay on the return track to an individual delay. So if we copy this up onto the track itself, and we can put it ideally, could be before or after the filter. We'll check that in a moment. So we're going to copy it over to there. Let's make sure I didn't remove it. I did remove it, so I don't want to do that really. Let's put that back. We want to copy. The B delay is still there, and now I have a delay here. And we're going to just change this to be applied to the new delay. So let's say, first of all, we turn it on and off where we want to. So it's going to be on for the moment. It's the first clear bit. And then we're going to copy this, which is what we have so far. And we're going to copy that onto the, well, yeah, that's not going to, yeah, we could use the dry wet, I guess. So let's try that. And pasting it there. Just trying to replicate what I had, and then I'm going to show you why I'm putting it here as an insert instead of down here. So let's just zero that out for a second, this one. Take away that. Sounds good. Okay, perfect. So it's kind of replicating what we had, but we've now got the device on the track itself. Because then what I'd like to do in here is automate, say, the feedback, for example, a bit in this section where I'm building this new kind of delay. Okay, so that just gives a little bit of a groovy part in the back there, but we've got different control over it to what I had using the send return a moment ago. on a second there. I don't want that feedback to cut off there. Okay, let's try this. Okay, just doing a bit of tidying up here. So I've got different control over it now with the send and return. I could have taken, so the reason I did that, I could have come down here and started adjusting the feedback on the return delay. The issue with that is that then you're affecting wherever you've used that in other situations, and I already have used that on my the groove over here. So this percussion track here already has the use of that delay as well to create it. So I'd like to keep that the same wherever I apply that. In this case, it's just giving me a bit more flexibility to do something a little bit different here, which is what's happened there now. Okay, so along here, we've opened up the bass, but about here somewhere, or halfway through here, I'd like to come back in with the percussion groove. And let's try one here. Let's try it about halfway through. Still a bit strong for this point in time, so I'm going to actually go back and I'll try a bit of my earlier sequence over here. So let's pop that down. I don't know why I've got crossfader assigned there. Let's try this copied into here. Copied, not removed. A little bit of trouble with my alt drag today. There we go. Okay, so we might have a bit of this duplicated over. Let's try that. And I'm going to bring that in maybe directly there. So let me undo that. We'll try kind of that. I need to adjust my envelope a bit here. Like so. Okay, so once we get into this section, I'm happy with the percussion coming in, but I'm ready for something else now. So I think it's time to, maybe we can try a bit of the bendy FX in here. Not that one. Okay, so the laxative there. So I'm just going to remove this marker now. So as you can see, when I originally dragged these things to where I dragged them, we are doing our own independent path to those. So the caveat to that was, as I said, when I dragged the elements around previously, like this verse scene, and put it where I did, I sort of made the mention at the time that it may not end up staying there at all. So right now, this verse 2 scene doesn't necessarily have to be there at all where it is. So we can kind of, again, get rid of these markers. They were just there to kind of explain something last week. So we're going to bump those away. Quite like that little part coming in there. So let's just try looping up this section. And then let's just see what we've got going on here too. We don't need that clip because we've got 2 over here if we need to use some of that. Quite enjoying the 3. Do we take the kick out up here? Maybe we do. Let's have a look at that in a moment. Let's work our way along, bass along a bit, clap along a bit. We can pull it out from here. Also the, hang on a second, that's different. So clip 3. Again, we've got a copy of it over here, so we don't need that for now. We're still working with 2 at the moment. Vocals. Maybe something could happen here. The reverse vocal part. Chords I quite like to save for later, so they're probably not going to come in there, but we'll kind of leave the clip around just in case. And maybe it's time for the lead sequence in here potentially. And the end break, one of those. Again, don't really need that there at the moment. Well, hang on, we'll have that there again, but we'll just leave it muted in case we do end up with a break somewhere around here. This clip here can go. We're kind of working with the variation and the full clip here, so just getting myself back in action here. Also, we've got all of our little reverse snares and claps that we've been using for transition, so I think we could have another transition here. So let's kind of give ourselves the idea of that. And we could also incorporate another little reverse somewhere in there, or maybe we'll use the open hi-hat that I sort of also have. There's a little bit of a marker in there. All right, let's try that. I'm not quite so happy with that transition just yet here, so let's just try a little bit more of the bass across. No, it does need to come in there. Okay, that was clear to me. Okay, so what I dislike here is kind of the drop with the vocal. So the bass changeover is good, but this section here doesn't work now for my going back and revising it. So I'm not going to delete this little idea here. I'm going to delete it from where it is, but I'm not going to delete it permanently. So let's say we copy it, delete it from there, and we just sort of paste it somewhere. And we might come back to that. That might work in a breakdown or something like that. So I'm kind of parking stuff over here that I haven't used. Also that number 4 percussion loop, because what's missing here is a continuation of this. So let's keep it continued for now. What have we got going on with it? Okay, so what we want to make sure is that, let's just check things out here. So we've got here the dry wet. This is the feedback of the delay. If we take that off, we don't want no feedback, but it should be 21, which I think is the number there. So let's just bring up the other end of it here. So that's sort of default. And we're going to copy over our automation, just duplicate it. The filter frequency is still with the possibility to open further. So we've got that working, switched on. All right, back in action. something like that. A little bit of a dip up and down in the filter. We could record that in by hand, that could sound quite good. Okay, so I'm going to take some kicks out up here. So it's going to be a transition for sure. And I'm going to step back a little bit in time again, just to feel. I'm lacking at the moment the connection with the feeling again. How did I get where I got? I need to come back, go backwards and listen, because I'm thinking about whether we need a break here or not, or whether we're just going to keep going with the build here. We're kind of building from the intro. Are we sort of keeping going with that, or are we going to need a little break here? Adjust a few volumes later as well on those things. Okay, so I'm just thinking on my feet here. I added the bendy effects earlier. I now think this could be nice just to have a little bit like this perhaps. Let's try that. Right, I think we're cooking along there. I kind of feel the gradual build in here that we've got going on now. And now I think it's time to hit maybe a little bit more of the something like the leads could come in here. Okay, so that would be pretty serious there, so maybe not yet, but we've got a few chord tracks we could play with, so maybe we'll try one of the different chord ideas here, or also the ARP could come in there. Get our automation back on so we can see what's happening, make sure it's doing what we would like it to do. Okay, so I'm thinking maybe to try a little break on the other side of here. And what we might do is copy over, so instead of stretching out the kick there, we'll copy over the filtered kick here with the automation, and we might carry a bit of that kick through the break here. Okay, by the way, if you're tuned in with me in the live stream, feel free to say hello in the chat. Also feel free to drop any questions there. If you have any questions about arrangements or anything I'm doing here that you want to dig a bit deeper on, feel free to drop them there. I hope you're having a good Sunday. This is part 3 of a series of videos where I've taken an idea from scratch. I'm going to mix it down. I'm going to take it all the way to a kind of finished track. So follow along with me, and hopefully you're finding it beneficial and you're learning some things and seeing some ideas that you can take and try out in your own music production workflow. All right. Kind of feeling good with that. What I did, so just to point out there, I've got a couple of different chord progressions. So I've kind of gone into clip 3, which is like the triads. So a lot more emotion than the chords that we're playing before, which were just 2 notes. So very, very stripped. So I've kind of morphed the melody chord that we just introduced. I've also copied over a different bass pattern. So I have 2 bass patterns, one that's this clip, and then I've got another clip of it which is a little bit higher up in octave, so I was thinking to use that in the break. We've got the filtered kick coming through. Do we need a lot more claps and energy from the other grooves? I'm not sure. That's what I was kind of thinking as I stopped to have a pause. I also took the vocal out, which I think is good, because again, we're kind of, if we're not missing it, it's giving us a nice break from that, and we can bring that in the build up to the peak. So when we come the other side of here, if this is the break, I think this vocal should absolutely come back in there and take us along into this next sort of section where we're getting our stride on into the peak, building up to the absolute peak, which again, I've kind of just dragged the clips there, but yep, in the end, we'll figure that out in a moment. That was roughly done the other day. So wasn't with any thought to be the end where the peak lives, if that makes sense. We're figuring that out as we go. So maybe a bit of the hi-hat, but filtered right down into this little section. Let's just fine tune that a wee bit. Okay, just want it to match what I had on the other side, 505, no, something like that. Okay, let's copy it from, let's go back, copy that, just paste that there. Sounded like the sort of sweet spot. Oh, let's drag that over. Actually want that even lower on this hi-hat. barely noticeable, but it's there. And what we can do is actually have a little mini build on the other side of this automation point. Nice. Right, and so on the other side of that, in this first little tension building drop, that's going to help us really kind of come up to the peak. When we get on the other side of that, we're going to come in with the kick, yes. Maybe we'll try that bass continuing, knowing that we can come to the other bass if we wish, as we've got the two different clips that we're working with. We can also get rid of that kick clip and bring it across. We can also get rid of this peak marker now. We can ignore that. We might also have the clap come firing back in there, I think. Would make the most sense. And hi-hat wise, we're working in pattern 2. Pattern 1 is a more layered hi-hat, so that could be a great place to also bring that. Thinking that now we're going to really ramp up the energy here. We're going to really sort of say, you know, we are heading to the peak of the track, the top of the mountain. And I also want this open hi-hat to come in. I'm just visually dropping it somewhere. That's going to come in here somewhere. So what comes on the other side of the drop is what I'm just figuring out at the moment. Percussion wise, we might hold off on that, but let's see. And I'd kind of like to get the lead in maybe, and replace the pad chord that we've got for the lead. Just kind of figure this out. So this is the main clip. We've also got a 2. Let's see, maybe we start with the 2, not the main. Vocal wise, I think we can hold off on those for a little bit. Again, keep those over here. And 1, 3. So we know we've got 1 available to us over here, so we don't need that. And here we can copy from those sections. So I might sort of knock that on the head there so it doesn't come in. And we might do a little copy of this guy. Yeah. It's a little end of break. Okay, and let's see what that comes together like. We're also going to have this here, the automation of the delay over, the wet dry. Okay, fill that out a bit. Okay, so we need to kind of make it come away a bit here. So the bass, what we really need to do is maybe in the end, we're just going to need to add an auto filter so I can kind of control it. Because what I want to do is filter it away in here. So let's do it this way for now. Let's have a filter in this break area. And take the high cut. We're going to automate that, sweeping it away. Okay, not as dramatic as that, but not so bad. We could probably have a little bit of a kick fill maybe in front here. Just tidying up this little transition here, right top to bottom of the track. Okay, so let's get the frequency on this vocal down actually. So a tip for you, ladies and gents, is when you're working on these sort of the end of this little mini break we've got going on here, what we're trying to do all the way down through here essentially is remove energy. The more energy we're carrying there, the more low frequency or high frequency. So there's different ways you can do this. You can use lots of sort of like filters and automation to sweep away things like low frequency and high frequency, lots of automation to kind of remove, as I said, frequency at the end. You can also do like I'm doing, which is going through and kind of dragging parts back a bit, muting notes, and I'm just trying to feel out. I'm trying to virtually make that come right down to not a lot, so that when everything comes back in on the other side, effectively at 81 here, we get an impact, we get a drop from the break. Otherwise we just get what's basically a track playthrough, and things just play before that section into the next section, and we get no kind of feeling of like that. If I just stop talking, it's unexpected, right? And so we want to kind of create that kind of feeling there. DJ Normal Norman, long time, my friend. How you doing? I hope you're well, and a very happy new year to you. Arrangement is interesting. I've recently changed my arrangement. Okay, cool. Do share if you've got any secrets there that you wish to share with us. I'm just going to go backwards a bit again, just to feel out how this now feels. Let's go all the way back to here. And again, I'm just trying to apply the feeling cap. We're doing this in real time. Does it kind of make sense where we are? We're making our decisions here with feeling, not with any formula, templates, numbers. We've not been paying attention to that. We're sort of doing it by feeling. Okay, I like that. Got to still smooth in, I think, the start of when this lead sequence comes in, but the drop feels kind of nice. Norman, I've been putting a false drop after the break that builds over 32 into the actual drop. It adds anticipation. Yeah, that's nice. I like the idea of that. I often do a false kind of rebuild at the end of my breaks. So I rebuild things up like people are anticipating that it's all going to come in, and then I take it away again and then I drop it. So those kind of skills, again, if you're DJing and performing, a lot of those skills you kind of are using in those applications yourself when you're performing and DJing, and so you can apply those to your track. So I like to hear that. Sounds good, sounds original, sounds like there's plenty of feeling going in there, and you're sort of doing it again rather than, you're telling the story and you're building this anticipation, reminding ourselves that actually, I'm just looking back at my notes, keep looking at this, what am I trying to sort of do here? Story tell the parts that I created, keeping it engaging, clear, impactful, satisfying, and with a direction. That's what I'm trying to do here. No formula, just trying to kind of, as I said, keep it engaging for the listener, the dancer, keeping it nice and clear where you're going, what's going to happen, making impactful moments when I want that to happen, keeping it satisfying, hopefully, and going with a direction of how I'm telling the story of the original loop that I had, my peak loop. All right, so I still need to work on this lead sequence, but I liked what I was hearing there. But I also did hear that we could actually potentially, in this section here, add in an extra part that we don't have. I don't think this track kind of suits too much of a snare roll, but we could have some sort of a noise riser here, essentially. So I'm just going to put in a rough one here, and to be confirmed, but let's just try it and see what it sounds like. So let's just have a C3 legato. We are in B actually, so we could just put it on a B. Let's go B3. We're in B minor. And then we could kind of choose any synth really that has sort of noise. I mean, operator gives us some interesting options. So does Wavetable, gives us a lot actually. So does Meld. So depending on what you're kind of trying to do here, maybe we throw a Meld on here and we just put one oscillator on and we go down to something like filtered noise here. We just want to bury it in the background, so just for now it's just a simple note like that. We'll just automate the filter frequency for a second and just have that sweep open, and we can come back to that sound and make it much more kind of interesting, but we can just add a very basic little noise kind of riser in the back that sweeps up, and then we can even have it sweep back down again at the very end here a little bit, something along those lines. Let's have it audible from the beginning though. Just audible is what I'm looking for here. There we go. So that's going to sound very static. So some of the things that we can do by choosing Meld would be playing around with lots of the beautiful modulation we have here. So I'm just going to changing my sound of the noise a little bit. And then let's use, for example, we'll just pop into the modulation tab for a sec, and let's have some sort of panning movement on this. And we could do that with an LFO. We could use maybe LFO2, the black sheep over here, and we could have that on the panning down here. We do have spread already moving it a bit. We could go, let's go hard for a second on the pan. And let's slow it right down. So we're going to note sync it, maybe make it sweep. Bring it down a bit now. I have it around 2 bars sine waves. That's sweeping left to right slowly over 2 bars, and then we can use, say, LFO1 to wobble the filter a bit, and that'll just give us a little bit more movement. So let's click here and then come up to the filter frequency, and then let's speed that up. We can make this sort of random, so it moves in a random way. So arguably already we've got a bit more of an interesting noise sweep, right? Something like that. So just a quick, fast, dirty, cheap, not quite all of those things, but a little bit of a noise sweep for a bit more vibe in here. Unlikely to do a snare roll, I don't think. Maybe we'll try this note. Down on the 2. All right, so I'm pretty happy with that for now. Could also try a little bit of this percussion on the rebuild-ish part here. Could be an idea. Might be a bit overkill though. And actually we could start it. Just bring that back a bit with a bit of this. Thanks, Norman. I appreciate that. It is indeed kind of deep and vibey, but it's gonna pick up the paces as it goes. Yeah, kind of like that. Okay, so we need to bring that kind of in nicely. It's just too dramatic for me when the lead comes in, so we need to sort of work on that. But I'm just going to test out the different clips I've got. So we might do again just a simple auto filter for the moment, just to control it via automation a bit. So when it comes in, it's going to be quite kind of closed off, and we're going to open that up. And we're going to save the instrument filter for some lovely automation Okay, so let's make sure we've got the frequency there. So let's hear it when it comes in now at the other side of the drop. Maybe a bit more open. Let's just loop it up a bit here. What about if we take this out? Yeah, that might be nice. Yes, feeling that. There's that tension we're looking for. Okay, let's carry a bit of some variations in here. Let's bring in this guy, maybe in the second section here. Yes. Again, I'm just doing this by feeling. Maybe I'm not feeling it, but it feels right. Okay, so we're building up to another transition here. Very nice. Is there any swing groove? No, there's not really, but there's no swing or groove from the Ableton Groove Pool. But there is for sure, you know, I haven't quantized things too much along the way wherever that's been in place. So there's kind of a natural groove happening a little bit with things playing off each other. So let's pull back the kicks here. Let's maybe make a big transition here. See how that goes. Could be a little mini kind of transition. And sometimes in here, we haven't used one of these little moves for a while. We can always like take out a little kick here or there as well, just for a little bit of subtle variations, just little tiny things like these little delays that come on, little reverse claps, little open hi-hat on its own here or there. Right, so I'm very tempted to hit us with the open hi-hat on the other side of this transition. And this will really ramp things up if we do that here. Maybe we filter it in. Okay, kind of lost I had that open, I thought. Maybe I accidentally moved that a moment ago, but we'll fix that. So we're going to open this back up somewhere to here perhaps. So I think it was naturally kind of sweeping its way up. Now with this open hi-hat, I love it coming in there. I just didn't want to give it away too early, but it's obviously, now it's really telling us, here comes the peak, you know. That's what the idea is here. So we'll revise that in a little bit. I'm also going to bring my white noise sweep over, and that's definitely going to be attached to the end of this peak. And of course, what we could actually do is extend it right out to a longer sweep and kind of add that into the mix of the build as well. So we'll just move a few automation points around, and we're going to not have the note re-trigger. So I'll just do a Command J, so that's one long note here. Right, I don't want it to re-trigger. I want it to actually kind of just be one continuous note. Let's loop that. Okay, so that should work as a bit of a noise build. And I'm kind of enjoying the stripped again. It's really funny. Sometimes when you start doing this, things happen. Like I've got clip 1 and 2 of the percussion I did. I haven't even used those yet, so they're still up the sleeve. I've kind of ended up with this 3 that I made today, where I just kind of revised the percussion a bit, and I've really ended up sticking with that a lot through here. So it's funny how those things happen sometimes, all for the good, nothing negative about it whatsoever. And we've got some automation going on in here and there. So I ended up taking out the vocal there. That could also make a reappearance right at the end here of the peak. If this is going to be the end of the peak, could make a reappearance, say here, potentially. Let's actually just stretch it out to there. Copy the automation over. Otherwise, it's going to make a reappearance, but maybe it reappears in the break, but it's been mainly used in the groove, let's say. So what else we got? The main clip, let's move that right over to there. Let's keep going with that. These guys here. So let's move 2 over, and 1 we can move over to there. So let's keep going with this. These guys I'm not going to use there, but the end of break, there might be one of those there. Chord 3, maybe we're using that and chord 1 transitioning, or just all 3. Actually, I think we might flip that around. Actually, that could also work. Let's try it. I'll explain that in a little bit. Bendy FX, this guy, the one time I'm probably going to use that is going to be the end of a break if it's over here. And let's just grab one of these for here. All right, so a few little details here and there. Let's stretch this out. Let's go from, say, here where there's this little bit of a drop, or transition here. Something in here. Let me just stop for a second. Let's maybe do actually a little roll here, just to test what that might sound like. Yeah, that's kind of cool. But I need to work on it and make it better, but we'll maybe keep the theme idea. So let's just split that and give it a color. I'll make it white because that needs work in progress. So let's try also the synth itself opening up here. Okay, we also want to automate that as well. Okay, I'm just going to work on this for a few more minutes. Do you like dubstep? No, DJ Norman asks. Yes, I do indeed. Yes, yes. Fan of a lot of genres, to be honest. All right, so let's just see where we're at here in this main break a bit for a second, or this break. Now let's try a bit of our filtered kick over in here. So we're going to use a bit of your trick there, Norman. We're going to have a rebuild at the end of this break for sure, I feel like kind of coming back up somewhere in here. So a bit of a little fake rebuild of sorts, but we'll figure that out later. But a bit of a build back up, I think, would be cool somewhere over in there. Let's put that back out. But yep, to be confirmed. I'm also enjoying this Vox back in here. But I'd want to work it with the filter quite a lot so that it opens and closes in here. Yeah, that's kind of the idea. Rough idea for the moment, for this break idea. Just doing a bit of housekeeping while I'm listening, as you do. So I'm going to color things white that are work in progress. That helps me remember. And when I open up this track again, anything I see that's white is definitely not completed at all. Okay, so in here, we need some more of that. Okay, and in there. I'm in the flow now, don't really want to stop. When you're in the flow, just trying to keep it going. And I'm not sure if this would be interesting if it carried on for 4 hours. Maybe let me know if you'd like to see a very long stream one day. We can try that. I also think this could sneak a bit, not quite like that, but a bit more into here. Just had another idea. Grab them while they come. Putting things in place where I think they will happen on the other side of this drop. Right, well, we're going to bring the loop back there because that's far from done there. And let's do a little recap now, which is going to be from the start of today, where we began, up to where we are. Of course, this was well, not of course, but this was part 3 of a track from 0. So part 1 was the music idea, way back over in the session view with this peak loop over here. And then part 2 was flushing it out. Like you see in the session view, we made some extra scenes and got the loop, the peak loop that I built ready. And then that came over here into the arrangement view, and I placed it roughly on the timeline, which was where some markers, they're still existing from that time, where I just copied and pasted those different scenes here in the arrangement view. And now today I've started working on joining all those sections up and trying to tell the story of how we're getting from an intro to that musical idea and building all the pieces together. So we're going to do a replay in a second of where we're up to. Part 4 will be a continuation of this, so if you're interested in that, definitely stay tuned. Next Sunday we'll go into part 4, which should be finishing off this arrangement, tweaking the automation, tidying up some of these little ideas that I've sort of thrown in as they've come to me, and make them work and sound really professional and nice along with the rest of the track. Get it all sounding sweet, and then a mix down, which could be part 5 potentially, giving you and I'm trying to keep this as raw and as honest as it is when I'm in my own bubble, right, making music, because one thing with YouTube that is difficult is kind of like making it engaging and interesting, while I tweak a kick drum for 1 hour. So I've tried to avoid that, but you are getting a quite close look at how things really do happen in real time. That's what this channel is a lot about. So I hope you found this particular video interesting. Normal Norman, I saw you popped up in the comment. Best songs come when you're in the flow. And it was 20 years ago and I was at the rave. I'd listen to this for hours. Very nice comment. And absolutely, you're spot on, mate. That's the thing. You really want to get in that flow state. And as I said, with YouTube, I'm, a little bit more comfortable than I was when I did my first video, but I'm still learning here. So obviously I'm trying to convey as honest and real time action as to how it really actually goes, rather than something that's pre-prepared and you don't learn anything from it. So I will put a card at the end of this video to actually part 3, if you part 2, yeah, part 2, because if you haven't seen that, and it'll be a playlist, so you can actually go back and go 1, 2 and join the dots. This is 3, by the way. And let's actually, thankfully no crashes today, let's actually save this while we're talking about stuff like that. Let's actually get in here and make sure we've got a save of it. Haven't saved at any point along the way. So you can see I began it on Friday, January the 3rd in a live stream on that particular date. So let's save it. And we will also do a collect all and save, just to be extra safe, into the project folder. And as I said, I'll drop a card here to the playlist where you can watch all the videos in the series. Let's turn off automation here. Click the H so all the tracks are resized a bit. And we're going to have a playthrough, a little bit of a listen from where we have gone to where we are. Bearing in mind, it's not the finished article at all yet. What I also would normally do, by the way, is I would bounce this out at this point in time, render it out to an audio file, and I'd go and listen to it at various times, maybe while I'm cleaning some dishes or whatever, just giving it a bit of a listen. And that would also give me some notes and ideas to come back in with a fresh set of ears, because I've been at it for a couple of hours here. So it, as I said, it's not the finished article yet, but it's a good sketch, let's say. So let's have a playthrough, see what we've got up to the end of the main break. And we will, once I've done that, I'm going to sign out, and then we'll be back next Sunday, as I said, to carry on. And there we go. So I've just marked another section white there. That's something I need to address. I don't like the way that sort of currently transitions just at the end there. So I'm going to work on that. And also I feel like probably actually I'll take that all the way back, because essentially all of this automation that's going on in the analog synth itself, I want to record that with a MIDI controller, because it is, that could have a really nice kind of more organic vibe. It just sounds like it is just a ramp with some mouse points to my ears. It doesn't have enough feel to it, so we can get into that and map a macro to it and nicely modulate and automate that frequency cutoff so that that has more feeling and grooves with the rest of the track. So that was something that stood out to my ears during that playback there. And again, lots of little kind of subtle details, but the flow kind of, I think we can feel the tension and the rising tension of where we're heading with it, which is great. This breakdown needs a little work as well, just to pull it together and make it a really nice cohesive break. But yeah, happy, I'm sort of satisfied with where I got to and how it's going so far. And as I said, the goal is to get it, the loop right out to here somewhere, about there somewhere, finish off this section here, make the break really nice. Might even be able to make that break longer than it currently is. We might get a bit greedier. Also, somewhere else caught my ear as well. I think it's in here, this second section here. Also kind of needs a little bit more groove in there to hold the same groove that's happening at the front. So I might just also add a marker here, and I'll just put here a little bit more groove. So I've got some ideas for that, because I might carry the kick over. Yeah, a few ideas, but it needs to sort of still feel dance friendly kind of in that area, which, you know, feel it could be improved. So save live set as again. Let's make sure it's going actually in the right place, which it is. Great. Place that. Collect all and save. And Normal Norman, good stuff, mate. Keep it up. The game is hard but rewarding eventually. Yes, it is indeed. Main thing is it's very rewarding to be able to share this with you guys and girls, and I hope that it helps one of you, if not more of you, on your journey with music and electronic music and production and Ableton Live. And on that note, I'm going to let you go. Have a great rest of your weekend. Been nice chatting with you, Normal Norman, and also Adrian Dantes earlier. Take care of yourselves. Keep on creating, and I'll catch you in the next stream. Over and out. Ciao. Bye.